Dude, I'm snagged.
Welcome back, Snagged listeners. We are on episode 4, and as promised, Josh and I are going to cover the Fluke. So we're going to cover some soft jerkbait techniques. We're going to talk about where it should be fished. We're going to talk about why we fish it that way. We're going to cover rod and reel specs specific to the soft jerkbait. And then I'm just going to kind of, just cover a couple of things, brands and different types of flukes or soft jerkbaits that you can try. So, but before we get kind of too bogged down into that, how has the last week and a half, 2 weeks been for you, Josh? You're still on vacation.
Yeah. I'm almost done with vacation, unfortunately. And I'm about to be going away for a little while.
Now, you're not going to prison, are you?
No, I'm not going to prison. Thank God for that.
Okay.
That's a good one. Nah, man. Well, pretty much just been chilling at the house. Not as much fishing. Kind of just getting ready and prepping. We went down to Ray Roberts. Had a little fun down there.
Ray Roberts.
Yeah, had a little fun down there, and went down there and wanted to make sure the fish weren't going to bite, and we were right. They weren't going to bite, so that was good. So
yeah, it was honest to God, that was a perfect storm. If we could just be honest with the people, I mean, I love fishing, I love catching fish, but it is great just to get out there. But, I mean, dude, we got our butts handed to us because, I mean, within an hour of being on the water, the wind kicked up probably 20 mile an hour, and then we tried to find a little cove to put in on the opposite side, and it shielded us from the wind, but it still manifested 0 bites.
And, I think a lot about that lake too, and I could be wrong, but just me honest, like, I would have never fished this lake had I not known about it from the Bassmaster Classic last year. And I think a lot of people, I think the lake has probably got more pressured since then.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, how many boats came off the water when we were getting on? And it was like, 7:30? There was probably 4 boats, and not one of them got a bite, they said.
Yeah. I mean, was it 7:30 or was it like 8?
It might have been
even.
8. It might have been 8 even.
Regardless, people were coming off the water and saying the exact same thing one after another, and we, spoke to a guy who was putting in. He had just gotten done doing some routine maintenance on his boat, and he was like, "Yeah, if you fish this spot, that spot, and this spot, if the fish have moved up this area, or if you're persistent, you should be able to get into a fish." But
it definitely didn't move up. And I don't think the water definitely did get warmer. I think it probably actually got colder compared to what I saw in the reports.
Yeah.
But it was still fun to go down there and check it out. Much different than I expected. Expecting one of them Highland, Texas reservoirs like down in Central Texas is nothing like that.
Yeah, it was not rocky on the bottom. Did not have a lot of
no vegetation
structure that you could.
There was a lot of
there was a lot of timber, but there wasn't a lot of structure in terms of heavy rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And even the areas that looked like they had a lot of rock shelves, I mean, it was soft bottom everywhere.
I found out that I'm almost a sniper with my bait casters now, though. I put that lipless on that bulkhead, smashed that to pieces.
You're not
and then
wrong.
I nailed that log with my jackhammer. Blew my reel up, lost the jackhammer. That was good.
Well, and then didn't you have an issue with your DC?
No, I didn't have an issue with DC.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I think it backlashed, didn't it?
No, that wasn't DC.
Oh, that wasn't.
No.
What was that one?
That was the SLX.
Oh, the SLX.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had backlash, and I had to get a little bit of assistance on pulling that mess because I had to keep looking for fish. You know what I mean? I was the only one with the fish finder with the sonar, so
Yeah.
you know, Dean helped me out and handled the backlash issue. I went and looked for some more fish.
Yeah, and you know, even after I gave you the upper hand to fish continuously as I took a small break and tried to fix your stuff, you still could not catch a fish. So, you know, I tried. I really did try, but neither one of us prevailed at the end of the day.
No.
So
Still a fun trip.
we did have a lot of fun.
2.5 hours going down there for, you know, to kind of just hang out on the lake, whatever. But, you know, it was definitely a fun trip. But good news, right? I did go out the other day
Yes. Yes, you
to
did.
the old wildlife refuge and fish some of them pond lakes.
Yep.
And
You can call it whatever you want, Josh. The
Hey.
people already know.
I got some, dude.
You had to get your confidence
I
back.
had to get my confidence back. I had to feel the bite again. I still know how to set the hook.
That's good.
And I even got a bite on the old Berkeley Gillies, man.
Yeah, I know
You
you.
know, I'm pretty excited about that. They slam it, they hammered it, dude. And I got to figure out the hook situation on things. And I went and bought a couple, you know, some new hooks to try out on them, just to give them some more, you know, some more gap, so that when they bite down on it and push that hook in. And so get back out there and give it a try, see if I can get some.
What size did you end up buying?
I ended up
dude?
buying some 2/0 and
Yeah.
1/0 wide gap EWGs.
Okay.
Not like the straight shank ones, but the actual
Yeah.
wide gap ones. So hopefully those will do the trick. It's all about being able to. You have to be able to get that hook in that body part.
Yeah.
So that you're not messing with the tail area that moves. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the action.
Yeah, it's like a rubbery segmented bait kind of. It's weird.
Yeah. It's it looks like it is, you know, gonna work out for you, but maybe it was just the time of the year when I was
Yeah.
trying to fish it that I couldn't get anything. And I mean, you finally
messing
started
with it.
getting some
Yeah.
action on it, so that's good.
And then I also came in 9th place on the St. Johns River and the Bassmaster or the Bass Opens on Bassmaster 2022 Dovetail
Wow,
Games.
that's,
If y'all ever played, it's pretty fun. It's like all
that's
fishing.
really impressive.
So, you know,
Is that on PlayStation? What is that?
it was on the Xbox.
Oh, okay.
It was
All
on
right.
the Nintendo.
Well, good deal.
Yeah.
Well,
Still got that.
I will go ahead and say I have just been working. Just like last episode, just been working and trying to find the time to get back out on the water. So it looks like in a couple days we're gonna get back out and do another little fishing trip, but a little bit closer by, and we'll see how it plays out for us. I think I am actually gonna try and set up the soft jerk bait, and I am gonna try and work it out there. So give it a little action, see what happens.
Now-
So go ahead.
Now, when we start talking about fluke fishing, right, we're talking strictly the fluke fishing technique, jerk fishing technique, not using the fluke on a drop shot or fluke on a Carolina rig, right? Nothing
Yep.
like that. Just okay.
Yep, and I mean, there are instances, obviously, since you brought it up, that you can use it on those baits. And I'm going to cover bait sizes, and I'm going to briefly breeze over real quick. There are some 3-inch flukes that you'll be able to find, or 3-inch soft jerk bait. And those would be your, you know, more finessey versions that you'd be able to use on drop shot. But without further ado, I'm going to first introduce the soft jerk bait. So it's not actually called a fluke. We like to use that term to kind of cover everything that looks like a soft jerk bait, but fluke is actually just a a name that Zoom is given to the bait fish look-alike minnow,
presentation.
yeah, the soft plastic. Right. So if we use the term fluke, it's just it's our friendly way of calling out the soft jerk bait. So please don't get too bent out of shape by that. So first I'm going to go ahead and cover the locations in which soft jerk bait fishing is going to be the best from my personal experience. So currently I've run it in areas that have predominantly clear water, and clear water meaning, you know, you have the ability to see the bait about 3 to 5 feet down in the water, and you can still clearly see it if you are over top of that bait. Really what ends up happening is if you're fishing the soft jerk bait in a more murky water, if you can't see it, it's probably not going to be able to be seen by the fish, and it's not the type of bait that makes a lot of noise. Even when you are working that bait towards you, it doesn't displace water quite like those bigger baits do. So it's not going to get the same kind of action as it would in clear water.
A good way to be able to test the clarity of your water too, if you can't really tell, because sometimes you get that stained, almost that really bright green water.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to tell how clear it actually is. You could dip your rod tip down into the water, and you can get a good visual of how clear the water is going to be. But just by doing that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Also, you're going to fish the soft jerkbait literally the exact same places you would a hard jerkbait. So for me, I've been fishing it in shallow areas, and then I've also fished it in deeper water. Typically, you're going to want to allow that bait to kind of float at the top of the water if you are fishing it weightless, and it's going to slowly have a more lifelike presentation and slowly start to dive below the surface of the water. And that, for me, has been the best presentation to get a reaction from fish. So this is a reaction bait, and when you are working this bait, you may not be able to see the fish, but the fish are definitely going to be able to see this bait in that clear water. Personally, I've never used it with any kind of weight on it. I prefer to fish it weightless. That lifelike, more soft and delicate, float that it has allows for it to look more like the bait in these colder transition waters. So the time of year that you're going to want to end up fishing this more often than not is going to be about fall or late spring, early spring. That being because the bait fish typically are separating from those big bait balls at that point, and you just end up getting more action on a singular bait than you would end up like if you were running an A rig or an Alabama rig, where they're in those big tight balls.
When you talk about letting it sink, before you start actually, I don't know if you're going to get into that or not, but before you start actually using your retrieve, right?
Yeah.
Like how long do you let the weightless fluke or that presentation sink? How long do you let it sink for before you start your retrieve?
So it really depends on the size of the fluke or the size of the soft jerkbait you're using. If you're using a 5-inch, typically that's like the standard size for soft jerkbaits. I would let it drop, and I'd let it sink for probably about 5 seconds. Just counting myself 1, 2, 3, all the way to 5. And if you're running a 7-inch, which is also on the larger end, but it is another great presentation, I would only let that one drop for about 3 seconds. It has the ability to fall in the water a little bit
Okay.
faster because it is more dense. Um, and then whenever you are working it back towards yourself, you're going to want to work it very similar to the hard jerk baits. So you're going to want a jerking action and almost like a slapping action, where you'd be slapping the rod from, the front of your body off to one side or the other. I've noticed, depending on the positioning you are on either the boat or the kayak, or where you are casting it, is going to dictate and determine what side of your body you're trying to kind of slap the rod to.
Right. Is there a cadence like jerkbait, or is it a constant retrieve, or is it both?
So I do a 1-2 cadence,
Okay.
and what I mean by that is I do one slap to the side, another slap to the side, and then I kind of let it fall again. Whenever you're ripping that rod one side or the other, you're actually bringing the bait from a lower level in the water up a little bit higher, and you want to allow that presentation of the bait to fall back down and kind of slowly get back down to the depth that you want it to. But that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked it, because I was kind of focused on one thing.
Because I know there's other retrievals too. I know there's a skipping retrieve where you get it skipping across the water, but I think that's used in different scenarios than what we're talking about. I think more often or not, it's used in rougher waters when the shad are actually moving a lot before they start to die. I think the retrieval, what we're talking about here today, is more around the time the shads start to kind of, like you said, disperse and kind of die off. So it's a little bit slower, but still working it fast. I think the skip retrieve is more, like I said, for a rough, choppy water type of day or something like that.
And you'll be able to tell the way that the fish are biting by throwing a couple of different presentations. If you throw the hard jerk bait and you're noticing that you're not getting fish to fully commit, you'll see a fish, kind of slowly swim up to your bait and then turn. You may want to switch over to that soft jerk bait because it has the ability to be more lifelike. The tail on that thing has a lot more action, and it does a lot of the work for you in terms of, you're not having to constantly rip that bait through the water.
If y'all are wondering about the skipping retrieve, all it is you're just skipping that bait across the top of the water.
Yep,
Almost
just like a top water.
lure.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's all it really is. Letting it sink a little bit and skipping it through the water like a shad being chased, or some sort of bait fish being chased in the water. That's all that is.
Exactly. Now, I personally like using this bait when I'm fishing on rock walls. I've noticed that when the fish, in that fall time frame, are sitting up close to the rocks, where once the sun has come out and warmed up some of that water close to the rocks, the fish will be suspended below, the surface, and when they are looking up, because the shad want to be warmer, so they can move a lot faster, they're going to be looking up, the fish are, in order to find and target those bait fish. And I've found more often than not, working it anywhere from 5 foot to 3 foot from the surface, you're going to get a lot more bites. I was talking about the disco violet and the disco blue colors. Those colors were phenomenal. And there's a couple of different ways that you can rig up a fluke. So a lot of people know that you can run a fluke where it is weedless, and you can run like an extra wide gap, and a lot of the times the hook will actually be sticking out of the stomach of the bait, the curve of the hook, not the actual point of the hook. And that, to me, it just doesn't have the realistic presentation that you're really going for. So I switched it up after getting skunked on 3 different bites, and threw on the flipping hook because it has more of a tight curve,
Right.
to where the hook actually bends in. And if you place a lot of the flipping hooks, they have like a little keeper. It's almost angled
Yeah.
up by the eyelet where you'll put your line through.
Right.
And that keeper will allow for the hook to perfectly sink into the bait and hide itself, because a lot of those soft jerk baits, they either have a flap or some kind of opening on the stomach side of the bait, and it'll hide that hook completely for you. And it also puts the hook at an angle, versus with EWGs. A lot of the time, the hook is in line with the eyelet. So if you're looking at a hook from the side, you can actually see that the point of the hook and the eyelet are in a direct line. If you're looking at a flipping hook, the hook is almost at an angle from where the eyelet is, and you can typically get hooked into a fish a lot easier. You can set a hook a lot easier because of the angle that presentation allows it to be at. So I love fishing this technique, and I love that I've been able to find a different purpose for a hook that was specifically meant for one purpose. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I feel like that's a great kind of thing about fishing, is sharing experiences like that and sharing, little intricacies that are going to allow people to fish something a completely different way than they
Right.
probably
Gives you an
thought
advantage
of.
too, an advantage over other, you know what I mean? Just different ways of presenting that bait.
Mm-hmm.
What size hook? Did you mention that? I don't.
I didn't mention that. I'm not using anything larger than a 2/0 hook.
2/0?
It really just depends. Different companies I've noticed don't have that keeper on it.
Right.
So the one company that I notice, and like we've said prior, we don't have any ties to these companies, but the 6 Sense flipping hook, 1/0, worked perfectly, and I was catching. I probably, on a single bait and a single hook, I probably caught 15 fish within 2-3 hours.
Nice.
And when you are on a gigantic body of water and you're
That's good for
fishing
2
a
to 3
specific
hours.
way, that can be, especially on Belton. Belton is a tough body of water. So
Once you get them figured out, though, you got to figure it out. And
Yeah.
then it changes the next day.
yeah, it does. It does. One day they'll be hitting the soft jerk bait. Next day they'll be hitting the Ned rig. Next day they'll be hitting Texas rig. Next day they'll be hitting flipping, swim jigs or something like that. So you just you gotta figure out that cadence and kind of get to it. I know I probably hit this before, but you can fish this bait fast or slow, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying. Skipping it over the water. That's a perfect example of fishing it a little bit faster, and then also fishing it slower is like I was talking about. That 1-2 cadence, and then just slowly reeling it in. You want to try and make sure that you, as any technique that you're going to be fishing, you don't want a whole bunch of slack in your line. So give the bait enough slack to where it still has the ability to have a natural fall, a natural descent, but you do not want it to be so slack that a fish bites it, realizes that that's not what it wants, and then lets go of it. So I'm going to cover just a couple of baits that I've personally used that I like, and then I'm going to cover the rod and reel combos that I've found to be the most useful. So I personally love the Zoom Fluke. We've already kind of hit that. Zoom also makes a mag fluke. That's that 7-inch bait. So the normal Zoom Fluke or Super Fluke is a 5-inch. The Zoom Super Mag is going to be the 7-inch. Also, you've got the Z-Man Pop Shads. So I haven't fished it, but I know someone who has, and I was on the boat when I was fishing with the Zoom Fluke, and I noticed that the pop shads actually have a soft jerk bait action, and then they also have a popping action. So
Really?
it's a really cool bait, and it's made by Z-Man, so it's practically indestructible.
Now I love flukes. I
Yeah.
love Zoom's flukes. Only thing I wish is, now maybe there's a reason is for this and I just don't know it. The tail. I wish it was, I wish it was facing uh, the same way as a normal fish. You know what I mean?
I know what you
That's
mean.
the one thing that kind of gets me. But I mean, and I don't, do this kind of technique a lot. But I use the Zoom flukes for a lot of trailers.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of luck on them.
Yeah.
As far as trailers.
Yeah,
Right.
that's an awesome
But I know
idea.
Z-Man makes a lot of cool, different styles of soft jerk baits. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you were talking about the pop shad. I know the razor shad's really cool.
Mhm.
The segmented one. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Those are really cool. I like them. The trailers, but I think you use them for the same purpose.
Yeah, yeah, you can. They have a plethora of fluke like or soft jerk bait like baits from Z-Man, and they're awesome. I actually have a fluke that they make. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but they make a fluke from Z-Man that you can use for drop shot. So
Really?
it's really cool. And then the colors are just out of this world. I do have to bring up specific colors because I've found them to be,
Right. And
the best
This
colors.
is really big for me too, because this is one of my biggest problems when it comes to finding the right colors for soft jerk baits. I'm always going with them. I tend to lean more towards those, I guess, opaque colors like your solid whites or your solid whites with the silver backs or blue backs or black backs. You know what I mean? To try to-
I've used those same colors and I never get anything on them.
Right.
Like a pearlescent white
Right.
fluke.
No
People
luck.
swear by them in certain areas, and I fish them and I don't catch anything.
As far as trailers go, I've had lucks on green pumpkin, and I've had luck on black and blue ones or black straight black for trailers. But as
Yep.
far as this kind of fishing, I have not been able to find the right color. So Dean, what is the color?
Okay, so the first color is going to be any kind of shad color. Shad and then bluegill. So Zoom actually makes a bluegill color, and it's got gold flake in it. It's like a smoky gray and kind of like a smoky gray and clear bait predominantly. But it's got gold flake in it, blue flake in it, silver flake in it, and like black. And that one, I was tearing them up on that. Besides, obviously, the disco colors. Those disco colors were awesome.
And those are also a clear color.
Yep. Yeah, the disco colors are like pretty much translucent, and the only thing that makes it visible are the flakes that are also translucent, but in certain light you can actually see the violet or the blue flake.
It's almost like they're taking these clear plastics and using the flake as a color rather than using a dye as a color,
Yep.
right?
Yep,
And
exactly.
making that, because that flake kind of, I guess, in my mind, gives it that kind of that scaly
Yep.
action look,
Exactly.
that scale look on the bait.
The
So-
reflection of the sun on the scales
So-
would also be the
Right.
same.
So I'm
yeah.
sure there's times where the opaque colors come in, those solid colors come in, but it's from what it sounds like, clear. Anything clear with the flake being the primary source of
Oh, yeah.
color for that bait is the go-to
Yeah,
as far
absolutely.
as this kind of fishing.
Absolutely. I was gonna bring up sexy shad too. That color works really well, and that one's more of a smoky gray, and that one is not translucent though.
Okay.
So that kind of throws a wrench in our whole
Right.
plan.
I
But
guess it depends on water clarity and water color at the same time.
it does. I've also seen people catch them, and this is more in like dirty water,
Right.
or even like red dirt water.
Red kills.
Some-
Red kills in dirty water.
Yeah,
We can talk about that in Florida. I ain't gonna go too much into that. But
I've seen bubblegum kill
Really?
on like bubblegum pink flukes in rivers in Georgia when I was there. I mean, smacking
no
them
way.
up on that.
That's crazy.
Um,
Bubble gum.
but yeah, it's crazy. That's a color that just
Favorite.
blows me away.
I'm telling you, man. It does
Um,
something though, dude.
Yeah, it does.
It does
So,
something.
transition over to the rods. So, I've seen people use shorter rods, 6'8". Personally, I'm going to use nothing shorter than 7 foot. That's just a rule for myself. I prefer to use 7'2" medium action rod. There's a Bass X medium action that is a fast tip, and that's what I prefer to use. And that rod is awesome for fluke. You're gonna get all the sensitivity in the world, and then just to ensure that you've got the backbone, that rod can do it.
As far as sensitivity, is sensitivity as crucial for this kind of fishing as it would be for a finesse fishing application like Ned rig or drop shot?
So
And there's a reason I'm asking, but I want to hear your opinion.
I'm gonna tell you yes, because the bite that you're gonna get from a fluke is not as abrupt, or not as not as violent as a stick bait would be.
Right.
When they're biting this, a lot of the time it's being bit when you're in the middle of pulling that bait back.
Okay.
And a lot of the time the hook set is while you're jerking it to the side.
Okay. And you still want it to be a fast tip, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you want it to be a fast tip because the sensitivity matters in the fact that you may be jerking the bait back and you may not even realize that you're getting bit by a fish.
Okay.
So you want that sensitivity, because don't get me wrong, you'll be able to tell when you're getting bit, but you want to be able to respond immediately.
Sometimes they're going to hit it and your line's going to go forward on you.
Mhm.
You're not going to really
Mhm.
feel it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Sometimes that happens and you want to be able to reel up on them and get them.
Yep.
The reason I'm asking is because, as far as like rod building goes, you want to try to not break the bank when you're building your rods. So when you buy like a glass style rod, right,
Mhm. Mhm.
over a graphite rod,
Mhm.
you're going to get, it's going to be a little bit cheaper for that blank. And that's what I was wondering, because like, honestly, when you're building a crankbait rod or a chatterbait rod or something like that,
Yeah.
you can get away with buying a glass rod because you don't really need that much sensitivity. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
the sensitivity is in the wiggle of that bait and not necessarily the hit, and you can get away with it being a little bit moderate because you're reeling into them, right? And that's what I was
Yeah.
kind of wondering. So, because I built a rod specifically for the purpose of jerkbait
Mhm.
fishing, ended up using it a lot more for a finesse style bait casting rod, but it was a 7 foot medium
Mhm.
action fast tip. Now it's a 6 foot 10. Things happen, but yeah.
So when I say, medium fast, that does not cover a regular jerkbait too.
Right.
Because a regular jerkbait is going to have a lot more drag because of the lip that's on those
Right.
baits. So you're going to want something that is probably a little bit more like moderate when you're talking about
Okay.
sensitivity for the tip on that, because otherwise it's just going to be jiggling and
Right.
vibrating in your hand the whole time.
Right.
And that, that's not going to be able to
Okay.
give you the sensitivity you want. So jerkbait, hard jerkbait versus soft jerkbait, there's going to be some differences there, obviously, in the rod specifics.
Adjust the handle as well. Like know what size handle you want when you're doing that kind of fishing.
Oh yeah.
I prefer when I'm doing that kind of fishing to have a split grip handle rather than a full handle. That's just my that's my preference,
I would agree 100%.
and I want my handle to be a little bit shorter.
So,
normal.
so for me, I want mine when I'm holding it in my hand and I'm holding it where I've got the reel
Right.
touching my hand. I want the rod to come about halfway down to 3/4 of the way down on my forearm
Okay.
because whenever I'm ripping the rod back, I want the handle to hit my forearm and that be the backstop for
Right.
it.
I'm the
You know what I
same. I'm
mean?
the same exact way.
So,
Because
whenever
you still
you're
need that leverage. You
yeah.
still got to have that leverage to, get that hook set and get them cranked in. You know what I mean? So,
And it is like it's not a young man's game when you're jerkbait
no,
fishing. You need
absolutely.
to have you need to have a little bit of experience under your belt when you're fishing these presentations, whether it's hard jerkbait or soft jerkbait, because 10 minutes into it, 5 minutes into it, even your forearms can be burning up.
Go to the gym.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if that's gonna help much. But
I don't know either, man, but it gets tiring, dude.
yeah, so just give it a whirl. I think it's definitely worth it to give it a whirl. Now, specific for reels, I'm gonna go 7-3 to 1, 7-5 to 1, 8 to 1. Like, I want it to be a faster reel or a faster retrieval because if I want to fish it fast, I want to have the ability to reel in 28, 30 inches of line every turn. Otherwise, you could kind of hamstring yourself and only allow yourself to reel in but so much.
Right, and it also helps too on that bite, that we were talking about earlier, that bite where they push the line forward, you got to be able to reel up on that line fast enough.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, when you're fishing a hard jerkbait, there's multiple treble hooks on that bait.
Mm-hmm.
When you're fishing a soft jerkbait, the way that we're talking, you're gonna have a single hook, and there are instances where people will put like a small hook through the tail too, and run a hook through the tail.
What do you call them? A trailer hook.
Yep.
Like it's a treble hook on the back, like running a straw through the jerkbait,
Yep.
running a line through the back.
Running a Capri Sun straw
like
right there.
Putting a hook, a line through the butthole of the fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's. I don't know if that's how I would,
that's
phrase
what I
it,
call it.
but
The butthole.
putting it right in the old butthole.
The butthole.
I think we probably hit our limit on saying butthole on here. So, bottom line up front is just get out there, try something new, make sure that you have the, sense to know, based off what we said and based off your personal experiences, when and where to throw this bait, how retrieval should look from the waters that you're fishing versus how we have fished them personally. Every time you go out on the water or you go to the water's edge, you're gonna find a different experience, but more times than not, the experiences of other people are gonna help you kind of zero in how to fish different techniques. So.
I've got one more question for you, Dean, on this technique, right? So we know a lot of people have started moving on to using spinning combos for hard jerkbaits, right? Because it allows you to get that lighter line, that lighter bait further out, right, on the cast.
Oh yeah.
Right? A lot of people have been doing it. And most spinning reels are a slower retrieve.
Yes,
right?
Definitely. They're typically like 5 to 3.
And I think that comes with the whole idea of having your treble hooks. The fish is usually, when it bites that bait, it's going to hook itself at the treble hooks, right? As far as using the soft jerk bait on a spinning combo, what do you think about that? Because I know there's a lot of people out there who have not really mastered the baitcaster yet, especially when it comes to lighter tackle like this and lighter line. Like you're saying, you're using 12-pound line, right?
That's what we were talking about before.
Right.
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, what would you say to people who are out there trying to use, who have not mastered the baitcaster and still are working the spinning combo?
So if it was me, I would ensure that I have a rod that has the ability to still have, some more backbone, because a lot of times your spinning combos have really, soft rods.
Right.
Especially if you're buying a combo right out of, Walmart, Bass Pro, Dick's, wherever you go. You're gonna end up finding out that the rod does not have the backbone that it needs
Right.
to be able to action the bait the best way.
So maybe possibly bumping up the power of the rod.
Yeah,
if
I
that's
would.
a thing.
So, if you can find a more,
Right.
a medium or
Heavy.
a medium heavy,
Right.
and ensuring that for that I would go a moderate tip on it, because a lot of times the taper on a spinning rod is going to
Yeah.
be a little bit, a little
Right.
bit more. So the tip on it's going to be a lot softer.
So definitely probably look into custom rods and stuff.
Yep.
And, as far as your reels go, you're not gonna really. It's gonna be hard to find a fast gear ratio in a spinning reel. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some out there, but that's just something you're just gonna have to work with. This is not to say that you cannot work this bait on a spinning combo, because you can.
Oh, yeah.
You can work anything on anything if
Yeah.
you feel comfortable enough with it. But you're just gonna have to be prepared to get that reel going as fast as you can whenever it comes to a bite where they slack your line.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that, and whenever you are getting some of that action, when you're kind of whipping that bait through the water,
right,
you're gonna have to ensure that you're reeling in pretty
Yeah.
much constantly after every single action of the rod. But
advantage is you can whip that thing out a little bit further,
uh,
depending on your
it
reel
depends.
itself.
It depends on
But-
your setup.
and
I
the-
would
and
say,
your, and how much experience you have, right?
Yeah.
But you will be able to whip that sucker out. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
One thing, and you brought it up briefly. One thing I would definitely make sure you're doing is ensure that you've got the right line set up on your reel. For the bait caster, across the board, I'm not going anything above 15-pound test
Right.
for fluorocarbon. For braid, I'm not going anything above 20.
Right.
And then if you like running a leader from braid, I would still stick to that same methodology.
Yeah.
And that is where you're going to make your money on a bait caster. Throwing it further is, combining fluoro with braid.
Okay.
Having it backed with, some cheapo stuff,
Yeah.
throwing on some good braid, and then throwing on, a 12, 18-foot
Okay.
leader.
That's smart. I didn't even think about that.
Yep, that is my kind of personal take on it. I like running a bait caster, with braid on it.
85% of the time for me, I'm in the bait caster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
I wish over the winter I was fishing more from my bait caster, but I've been so, dialed in with drop shot and with, running the shaky head that I really don't veer from a spinning reel and a spinning rod in the winter. So, but I think that really just about wraps it up.
About sums it up. And
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, if anybody has any personal experiences, we love to hear, what your take is on, personal experiences with soft jerk baits, hard jerk baits, running, any kind of combination of the bait caster or spin cast. So if you have any feedback, please let us know.
yeah, and then just a quick announcement. So in the next week, we're gonna have a lot of moving parts going on. I know I'm gonna be hopping on a bird and heading out. So we're gonna be a little wrapped up with some things. I know next week, it's the middle of next week, we're gonna be dropping a new segment, which basically goes back and covers some of the things that we've missed in previous episodes that we're calling Snagged Backlash.
Yep.
We're going to go back, kind of hit some of the things in the last couple episodes that, we thought of that, hey, this would have been good to put in the episode, and kind of cover them a little bit. Kind of as like a every so often type deal, I guess. I don't really know how to put that, but
Yeah, whenever
yeah.
I mean, if we record a couple episodes
Yeah.
and then we go back and we're like, wow, we really should have hit X, Y, and Z. We'll
And right.
we'll release another
It'll be a
backlash
midweek
episode.
before the next episode.
Yep.
And then we're gonna do our best to try to get an episode out to you next week. It might be a little bit later. It might not get dropped that week at all, depending on how things work out for us.
Yep.
But we will definitely get this backlash episode out to y'all, and then within the next, I would say, 2 weeks, we'll definitely get back on it and get going again. Get
Yeah,
the ball
so
rolling.
so after our backlash episode, we've got a couple of topics. We could talk Texas rig. We could talk, top 10 soft plastics, rod building. What are you feeling right now?
I don't know. I think we'll have to discuss it, maybe surprise the listeners. And hey, if y'all have anything y'all would like us to talk about, leave it in the comments on the social media or on YouTube, and let us know what you want to hear us talk about.
Absolutely. And as always, hope everybody has a good week, and we will listen to you all through feedback and see what else we can put out for you all.